Welcome back to session 2 of Mr. Mizuka's 1920s review. We'd like to give a shout out to the U. He's the Sheik.
And Taylor Young, my good friend.
What about Ann Taylor?
And Taylor Young, my good friend Taylor Young.
Yeah,
Taylor.
she's just super. Just super. All right, so we are back. And Andy, why don't you get the ball? Yeah, what do you need? In our second session. Here we go. Don't be nervous. Come on, you're...
He's trying to expand my brain.
All right, here we go.
Gee whiz, Mr. Mizuka.
Yeah, Andy?
What's up with these consumer goods? Like, when did all these gadgets and stuff start?
Well,
nailed it.
You kids love your gadgets. You know, everything's gadgets this and gadgets that. And, well, America really becomes truly involved with appliances, consumer goods, and we see in the 1920s a vast difference in the production that made the millionaires of the Gilded Age. Now, millionaires of the Gilded Age were all steel, oil, and those industries. Well, in the 20s, that shifts. Right? So we are now seeing the where the corporation kind of starts in the Gilded Age. The corporation starts to dictate behaviors in American society in the 1920s with appliances and consumer goods such as radios and cars. And we see that in the 1920s. As Americans have more income, American corporations gives them another opportunity to spend that income. So we have, as you guys read in Babbitt, George had all the latest everything. He loved his alarm clock. However, someone can love an alarm clock. But he thought he was the best because he had the new. We all want the latest, right? No one here wants to be caught dead with an 09 iPhone. Please, might as well just get a string and a can. It's about the same thing as using something from like 09, right? And so that kind of sets it. And with cars, there's a reason why dealerships come out with new models every few years. Why? Because they want you to keep buying. So that idea of planned obsolescence starts in the 20s. Make it good, and then plan for it to fall out of fashion, fall out of style, break, and so people keep buying new ones. So in the 1920s, we have the consumer good industry was the #1 industry of the 1920s. And what better way to get people to buy those products is the age of advertisement. So you all had some pretty good advertisements in your radio broadcast. Coca-Cola by far was one of the more popular ones, and that was a big corporation in the 1920s. What people don't know, that baseball great Hall of Famer Ty Cobb was one of the first investors in Coca-Cola. We all know him as the George Peach, and well, you don't, but I do, because I love baseball and you guys hate it. Boy, Jonah, love it too. And so Coca-Cola is in Atlanta because Ty was, of course, a big investor in early Coke products, and advertising becomes a skill. It's a course offered in colleges for the first time. So people are getting schooled literally in advertising. And then obviously we see late 50s, early 60s, that whole ad agency, Don Draper, Mad Men, that's when it all explodes. Right? So that's your consumer goods, and people love their gadgets. Hi, Sarah. How you doing, kid?
How do politics have an effect on social life and business?
Well, it's a great question, because we don't really think of, well, how can politicians have an effect on social life? I would first say that most importantly, it affected the ultra-rich first, because 1921 brings in a Republican president, Warren Harding, right? So we have Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover, all the presidents in the 1920s, all Republicans. And the political policies of that was to deregulate big business, and we'll kind of talk about more about that later on. But what they wanted to do, according to Harding, a return to normalcy. And what that normalcy really means is to what America does well, and that's business. And so under the advice of the Secretary of the Treasurer, Andrew Mellon, the thought process was we need to give tax cuts to the wealthy. And so they reduce their tax brackets, which gives them more money to invest in companies and corporations, which then creates jobs. We'll see that in the 1950s. We'll see that in the 1980s with Reaganomics. Tax cuts for the wealthy. And the idea is that money will trickle down and get in the hands of the middle class and then the lower class. So people have more income. And so that's sort of how that was the political policies or the business policies of the Republicans, and they were pro-big business. Again, traditionalists is what American tradition was about, business, and so that's kind of how they fall into that category of being traditionalist in that sense. And Harding was well liked until scandals rocked his administration. And there was a radio broadcast that gave me a feature story on the Teapot Dome scandal. And Teapot Dome is a horrible name of an oil field in Wyoming. And what it was an oil field set aside for the use of the U.S. Navy. And Secretary of the Interior, his name is Albert Fall, was selling this oil, which was set aside by the Navy, to private companies and making millions of dollars. When he got pinched, that means arrested. And he is later on indicted at the end of the decade. But Harding's administration historically is known as corrupt and scandalous, and you can't trust Harding. He dies in 23. This was food poisoning. I think Mrs. Harding had something to do with it. Because Mr. Harding, let's just say, was a very active participant in the legal activities. He loved his poker, he loved his alcohol in the White House, and let's say he had a little Tiger Woods in him. Let's leave it at that. So, Calvin Coolidge is our next president, and he is well liked. And he wants to obviously separate himself from the Harding administration, and he's our president who really kind of shifts towards big business. You see a rise in prosperity in the middle and upper class of the 20s, and that's why he's remembered fondly. Just because whenever there are good economic times, Americans like that president, and that's sort of what's related with Coolidge. The farmers, however, did not like Coolidge because of the 1920s. There was a surplus of farm products. So they were asked to buy new equipment and farm more for World War I. So by the mid-20s, there was a surplus of all the farm products. Farmers were doing the part. They're Americans. And whenever, obviously, you're all schooled in economics. Whenever you have a surplus, prices go way down. So the farmers were not making any money. So there was a proposed bill, the McNary Hagan Farm Bill, and if this bill gets passed, the government will buy all the surplus farm products from the farmers and sell it on the world market. Coolidge says, no, we're not in the farm business. And so he vetoes this bill. It was called the McNary Hagan Farm Bill. And farmers would have loved a little relief from the government, but they did not get it. So this bill was not passed. And again, this kind of reminds us of the populist movement. Why was the government during the Gilded Age helping them? We're going to deregulate big business so they can make more money. Gloria.
Hello. I don't really understand the causes of the Great Depression.
Well, hello there, Gloria. I do. Luckily, I do understand the causes. But first, I want to get a check on our time. Our timekeeper, what do we got, kid?
10 minutes.
Beautiful. So I'm going to have to try to, of course, sum up the greatest depression in U.S. history in 3 minutes. Okay. We can do it, right? Why not us, right?
Yeah, why not
Birthday
us?
kid.
Just tell me.
Look at you blowing out candles.
Thank you.
All right. We have a couple reasons. One, of course, we just talked about the farmers. All right, so there was no money coming in agriculturally. Two, there was an extremely high tariff in the 1920s to protect U.S. business. So it's not like the Gilded Age. All right. The problem is when there's a high tariff, no money's coming in from foreign countries. So there's no international trade. It's been stymied. Yeah, that's it, stymied because of the high tariff. On top of the fact that there's no international trade, European countries cannot repay war loans to us because they're not making any money. Why aren't they making any money? Because they can't trade with us. Why can't they trade with us? We put up a high tariff. Ooh, it's a catch-22, which is a book that you may or may not read in your life. In other words, it's a no-win situation. So that kind of ties in that. Plus, Americans are dumb, right? the Russian kid going, yeah, that's right. We bought a lot of consumer goods. Andy, remember all your gadgets? Remember your bebopping and scatting all over in your Model T circa 25? Remember that?
Yeah.
All right. People are buying stuff they could not afford. They're buying on credit. Why? To keep up that appearance. Look at me. I'm very affluent. I'm George Babbitt. And then another thing that Americans started to do in the mid-20s is playing the stock market, which I will introduce and discuss in session 3.
No way, this is unethical.